Hi, everybody. Today we are lucky, very lucky to have Michael Thurn. Is that right, Michael? Did I get that right this time?
Thurn, yes.
He's the CEO and managing director of PharmAust. PharmAust is a clinical stage biotech company developing new therapies for human and animal health applications. The company is repurposing Monepantel for the treatment of cancer in dogs. And we all know I can't say this word, neurodegenerative, that word.
Degenerate.
Dom just laughs at me all the time because I can
Does
never
it?
say that word
Right.
in
Okay.
humans. Whilst we all know how much I love dogs, today we'll be discussing the possible impact of a Monepantel on people with MND. So, Michael, before we jump into any of that, we like
Hmm.
to know about the person that we have on. So, not what you do, who you are. So, who
Who
are
I
you?
am. Who am I? So I'm very fortunate to be living in a great part of the world in the central west of New South Wales, on a property, and probably one of my passions is planting native trees and
Oh,
regenerating, paddocks that have been neglected for so many years, and like our place, it was very much in disrepair through 50 years of grazing by sheep. So
mm,
we're so pleased to have all the native wildlife come back to our property. Birds, echidnas,
mm,
wombats, and I've never seen a wombat before in Orange. We're just outside of Orange,
yeah,
so see that, yeah, it just really shows you how much effort we've put in. But it's possible. It's possible
mm,
to renew things once they've been completely, yeah, completely grazed off. So
yeah.
that's pleasing. But other than that, I've uh, yeah, I've been heavily involved in the biotechnology industry here in Australia. Working in different areas like cancer, dermatology
Mm.
applications. But the real basis for me is to try and make a difference. And I guess there's no better place to be than motor neurone disease, where you're trying to make a difference. And I think fortunately I've found a company in PharmAust that has an opportunity to make a huge difference to people with motor neurone disease. So I'm leading that company up and hoping that we can turn back the time and really bring something that's going to make a difference to people with this hideous disease.
You're a doctor of?
A doctor, yeah. So I have a PhD. So as my friends joke, I'm not a proper doctor, and but I'm a doctor. So and the way I explain that is that I'm a I could be a doctor of mechanics. It's just that I studied in a particular area for quite a long time and have
Yep.
built some expertise in immunology and in
Oh,
biochemistry.
well, we
But
need all that.
we do,
Mm.
but I guess my biggest skill set is drug development. So moving things from the laboratory into clinical studies and hopefully making them into drugs that are marketed one day.
So tell us firstly about PharmAust. Who is, tell us about the company.
Yeah, so the company's been around for some time, and it's had a few different journeys, a few different labels on it. The Probably the most significant advancement happened back in 2011, and it really dictated where we are today. Dictated by we brought into a company licensed to technology from the University of New South Wales that was around using Monepantel, the drug that we're using for motor neurone disease, as a potential oncology drug. And over the years, things moved from one thing to another. We investigated in oncology; it showed some promise, but then through our association with Susan Mathers, who your listeners probably know, fantastic lady, fantastic neurologist, and we're so blessed to be able interact, and she's a collaborator of ours. She was the principal investigator, along with Dominic Rowe, Professor Rowe at Macquarie University, for our phase 1 study for motor neurone disease, the MND study, looking at Monepantel in 12 patients. So the company started off as an oncology company. It dabbled a little bit in veterinary applications, particularly B-cell lymphoma, but now we're 100% focused on bringing a new offering, one that we hope is going to change the lives of so many people with motor neurone disease. Hopefully we can do that in the next few years. We're confident now, where we were accepted into the Healy platform trial. I'm not sure if your listeners know about the Healy platform trial, but it's a very prestigious platform trial looking at accelerating the development of new promising drugs for motor neurone disease. That's fortunately or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it. Fortunately, it's ran by the leading neurologists at Mass General over in Boston, and but the main thing for us is that it allows us to bring Monepantel to market potentially if it's successful in a very short period of time because of the structure of this platform trial. So by that I mean it reduces the cost by about 30%.
Wow.
The time taken to run the trial is 50% quicker than if we were to do it ourselves. And it also allows for greater participation for patients. And I think that's one good point for your listeners is that, given that motor neurone disease is a rare disease, the average life expectancy is just over 2 years. You want to offer people every opportunity to be on active drug. So the platform trial was really set up to reduce the number of people that were on placebo plus standard of care. And by sharing their placebo group across a number of different arms that contain other drugs, they're able to accelerate the development of the drug and potentially allow us to be in a position to seek approval within a 2-year time frame. So very exciting development for us. We only announced that last week, the beginning of last week, and somewhat on the back of that, we've been able to raise not an insignificant amount of money from investors, from our existing investors, to make sure that we put our best foot forward with the Healy platform trial and really push along the development of Monepantel.
That is very exciting. I read all those press releases, but I think what we should do is take it back a step for people who don't understand what this drug is. I want to know, firstly, how do you take a drug that is used for sheep intestine thingies
Yes.
and dog cancer to being able to, look at the proteins TPD43 in MND? How does that happen?
It happens through, like most things, serendipity. So the whole, light bulb moment was originated down in Yass, as the story goes. So down in Yass, a Professor David Morris at the St. George Hospital, he's affiliated with the University of New South Wales, was drenching his sheep for
oh my God, stop. Is this Professor David Morris?
Yes.
Who does stomach operations?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, our son had stomach cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he didn't survive, but Prof. Morris was our
There you go.
prof. Oh my God.
Yes.
Serendipity or what?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Holy
But
shit.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
Michael.
that's how this all started. So he was drenching his sheep, and
Oh,
at the same time, back in his lab, he was running anti-cancer assays. And he thought, he just put 2 and 2 together and thought, well, why not test Monepantel, which is
oh my God.
the main active ingredient in Zolvix, which is an Elanco product that he was using to drench his sheep for worms. And lo and behold, he took it back to the lab, tested it against a range of different cancer cell lines, and showed that it had anti-cancer effect. And it was that effect, the pharmacology, inducing autophagy in those cancer cells, that led us to where we are today. So we use autophagy as a way of cleaning up, the toxic buildup of proteins in our cells. And one of the hallmark features of motor neurone disease is the buildup of a toxic protein called TDP-43. So we're able to use Monepantel to stimulate autophagy to go in and clean up those toxic buildups of TDP-43. Now, the other fascinating thing about this is that we're not potentially just restricted to motor neurone disease or ALS. This proteopathy, buildup of toxic protein, is also found in Alzheimer's disease, Huntington's, a range of different
Parkinson's?
Parkinson's. Yeah, a range of different neurodegenerative diseases. And that's probably, where a lot of the excitement, particularly around, commercializing Monepantel for motor neurone disease. So one of the things that Australian biotechnology companies unfortunately suffer from is having enough capital to take the discovery through clinical development and finally getting the drug approved. So by showing that Monepantel also potentially has added benefits in Alzheimer's, some of those other more prevalent neurodegenerative diseases, there's an opportunity for us to partner with big pharma. And what that essentially means is that it allows us to even more, or allow us to accelerate the whole development program quicker than what we could potentially do by ourselves. So that's an important aspect to see whether there's an opportunity in other neurodegenerative diseases. But at the moment, we're 100% focused on getting everything set up with the Healy platform trial and running as fast as we can with that particular study over at Mass General.
We had Adam Walker on last year, so he taught us all about the proteins. So if anybody wants to go back and listen, that's Dr. Adam Walker from the Walker Institute, from Walker Lab at Brain Institute in Queensland. That was a really good one. So to date, what trial are you? Okay, no, I'll go back again. To date, what benefit has MPL shown to people with motor neuron disease?
Yeah, so we completed a phase 1 study. We had 2 sites here in Australia. One was with Susan Mathers at the Calvary Hospital down in Melbourne, and Susan contributed or enrolled 9 patients to the study out of the 12, and Professor Rowe in Sydney, he was able to enroll 3 patients. So between them, there was 12 patients in this phase 1 study. Now, typically when you do a phase 1 study, it's all about safety and tolerability, but it's about safety and tolerability of the drug over a short period of time. We were able to treat patients out to 12 months in that particular study. Because of the way that the study was designed, we dose escalated. So we in the same patient. So we were able to move from a low dose to a high dose in the same patient over a period of 12 months. And the reason why we did that was, one, we wanted to really nail that there wasn't going to be any safety and tolerability issues with the drug. And that's certainly a cause for concern with any patient with motor neurone disease. As you can imagine, they're rapidly deteriorating. So the last thing that you want to do is to impose all these additional side effects on them. So I can very happily report that we saw minimal side effects in that study. In fact, we only saw 3 side effects that were attributed to Monepantel over that 12-month period. So we're talking about a drug that has a fantastic safety profile, and one that's not going to cause any concern to patients when you administer it long term. The other great aspect of that study was that we were able to follow the progression of the disease in the patients by using a number of exploratory endpoints. And the typical one that you use is ALS-FRS, which is the 48-point score or scale that everyone uses. And by following patients over that 12-month period across a number of different doses, we were able to see that there was, a minimal reduction or a minimal decrease in the ALS-FRS score, indicating that we were seeing some benefit. Now, that was, in 12 patients. It wasn't compared to a placebo group, but the next best thing to not having a placebo group is to compare your result to what they call the natural history database, the PROACT database, which I'm sure some of your listeners have probably heard of. So the PROACT database is a way of matching our patients to people in that PROACT database and seeing whether we saw a reduction or any kind of benefit in the rate of decline. And when our statisticians, Berry consultants over in the US, looked at the result over 12 months, we saw a signal that indicated that patients were in fact receiving benefit, to the point where the whole 12 patients was seeing about a 40% slowing in the rate of decline over that 12-month period. Now, again, I'll put the emphasis on that this is just 12 patients. It's being compared back to a PROACT database, but that data was used to facilitate an orphan drug designation status from the FDA. So they saw merit in the analysis that we did, in the benefit that we were receiving in those 12 patients, to grant us an orphan drug designation. It was also the data that got the Healy platform trial team across the line. They saw that data as being extremely promising and one that they felt warranted being an arm in their Healy platform trial. So we're off to a great start. Like most drugs that are in clinical development, you start small, you prove safety, you get a hint, a whiff of efficacy, of promise, and then you go to a larger patient population to prove once and for all that it is safe, but more importantly, patients are getting a benefit from. So that's where we're at. We're at the stage now where we can use the Healy platform trial as that bigger study to allow us to demonstrate whether this drug is worthy of being approved and made available to patients.
So how many people will be in the Healy study?
It'll probably be around the study design phase. So we announced last week that we're accepted into the Healy platform trial. It takes around 2 to 3 months to come up with our specific regimen for that platform trial, and the regimen will dictate the number of patients that we need to enroll and treat with Monepantel. And that number is probably going to sit around 200.
Okay.
That's the size of the trial. Now, not all of those patients will be on active. Some of them will be on placebo, and the ratio is 3 to 1. So you're probably talking around about 160 patients on active compared back to this shared placebo group in the Healy platform trial. So not a big number, but the trial
Bigger than 12.
Bigger than 12, yeah. But it's certainly the number that that the FDA, because this study is being run in the US, the FDA will consider big enough to receive approval around, should it be successful. So yeah, very exciting times because it's only 160 odd patients that'll be on active, 200 odd in total. We're we're in that fortunate position that we can run that study pretty quickly and see what those results are going to be. So we're hoping that come the end of next year, we're going to be in a position to have a look under the bonnet. The 24-week interim analysis point is going to be roughly at the back end of next year, and that's when I guess the excitement will start. If we see a strong signal, well, that could potentially lead to accelerated approval of the drug.
Wow.
And then we'll take the patients through to 48 weeks, because that's the other frustrating aspect of developing a drug globally, is that the FDA will allow you to run a study for 24 weeks and potentially get accelerated approval, whereas in Europe they require 48 weeks. So we're hoping that this study, given the design of it, is going to allow us not only to get approval in the US, approval in Europe, but importantly, approval here in Australia.
Now, I'm going to be thumped by 2,000 people who have MND at the moment.
Yeah.
I'll be getting texts and messages nonstop about people wanting to, give this a shot, go on trial.
Yeah.
Are there any more trials happening in Australia, or is the Healy kind of overtaken that?
No. Obviously, the whole genesis of where we got to today came from, initial funding from Fight MND. They, provided the company with, close to $1 million to do that phase 1 study. So we still have patients from that initial phase 1 study on drug, participating in what we call an open label extension study. So we're following these patients for a further 12 months.
Okay.
We are looking at expanding that study. So by expanding that study, I mean opening it up to more participants. Because at the end of the day, we want to do the right thing. And the right thing, as I see it, is to make this drug available to as many people as we possibly can, but in a way that we can capture data, we can learn from that data, but more importantly, we're able to use that data to support approval from a regulator. So we'll look to open up this open label extension study, primarily being conducted with Susan down in Melbourne, but also we have patients with Dominic Rowe in Sydney. So there will be in the future an opportunity for existing patients here in Australia to potentially be considered for that study. Obviously, there's got to be inclusion exclusion criteria that apply to any protocol, but if they obviously don't fail through those inclusion and exclusion criteria, they may well be able to participate in the study.
So do you have the criteria of less than 2 years from
We
diagnosis?
We do in that particular protocol. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's and given that it's an existing protocol, we may look at opening up to 3 years, but again, we're working on finalizing what the true inclusion and exclusion criteria are going to be when we open it up. So that'll happen. We're hoping to look at potentially enrolling more patients in the back end of this year, Q4 of this year. So November, December, once all the necessary ethics approval come through. But that's going to be exciting. It'll be exciting because one of the things that came out of the phase 1 study was that our top dose, which is 10 milligrams per kilogram, even though patients were on drug for 12 months, the top dose, most of the patients were only on 10 milligrams per kilogram for around 2 to 3 months. So this open label extension study, opening it up, will allow people access to the highest dose that we feel is going to contribute the most towards benefit, towards efficacy. So that's the exciting part. We'll be able to follow these patients, kind of in parallel to the Healy platform trial, but we'll be able to follow them more closely here in Australia.
Once you've done the 24 weeks with Healy, let's say God loves us all and it's really successful. What
Yes.
then is the process in Australia for approval?
So the process here in Australia is that, there is a mechanism, and I'm not sure if it's been used before for motor neurone disease or ALS, but there definitely is a mechanism where you can apply for what they call provisional approval. And that may well be an angle that we aim for. So provisional approval essentially, is used by the TGA to approve drugs of considerable promise. That it showed considerable promise in a small patient population. You don't have to do your typical phase 3 studies to get a provisional approval. I mean, the results have to be, breakthrough or, quite spectacular for them to consider that. But it's not impossible for us to think that, our phase 1 data, the patients that we currently have on our open label extension study, supplement that open label extension study by introducing another, 10, 15 patients into that trial, that we may be able to gather enough data in order for us to seek a provisional approval here in Australia from the TGA. That's something that we're exploring, and something that gives us a lot of excitement, that potentially it could be an opportunity for us to get that provisional approval here in Australia. And what that does is it really opens up access to the drug, not only here in Australia, but also, in certain countries in the Asia Pacific region, because the TGA has a kind of a unilateral agreement. If the drug is approved here by the TGA, other countries in the Asia Pacific region area will accept that approval and allow the drug to be marketed in those countries. So yeah, that's something that we're working on. I mean, our main game is obviously trying to get the drug through the Healy platform trial as soon as we can.
Yep.
To get the approval, because we can use the data from the Healy platform trial to convince the TGA for approval as well. But in the background, try and build up our numbers here in Australia in order to ask the TGA the question. We've got really good data here. It's showing a number of patients benefit. Is there a possibility of getting that provisional approval and making it available to patients sooner rather than later here in Australia?
Well, would be a huge cost benefit to them.
Yeah.
Talking about cost, what would the cost? Let's again walk on a perfect life.
Yeah.
Will this be an expensive drug?
Unfortunately, it will be an
Yeah.
expensive drug. Yes. Now, I can't tell you how expensive
Sure.
it's going to be, because it's going to go through that whole process with the regulators, and then you have to put in a submission to PBAC here in Australia. In the US, it's quite different because they have private health insurance.
Mm.
So yeah, I couldn't really. All I can say is that unfortunately, in most rare disease drugs, the average list price is over 100,000.
Yeah.
It's just one of those sad facts that unfortunately, when you're developing drugs for rare diseases, they just cost more, because companies need to be incentivized to target rare diseases. Otherwise, everyone just focuses on the mainstream diseases, and the rare diseases are neglected. So there's a bit of that going on as well. But we've got a process to run with the regulators to work out exactly what that list price is going to be.
I used to get when my son that I was talking about before, his chemo cost a fortune, and I used to get $26 back.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, in the US, and certainly here, if it's covered by the PBS, yeah, definitely, there's an opportunity. But I think that's a good indicator of whether the drug, if it's covered by the PBS, it's a good indicator that it's something special.
Yeah.
It's making a difference to people's lives, and hopefully we fall into that bucket.
Well, you know what? If it is, then you've got all of us behind you anyway to make a noise. So don't worry about that. There's a whole crew of us make a
Okay,
noise.
good.
Yeah. Look, it is extremely exciting talking about all of this.
Thanks.
But it and but for people listening, I know you're going to want to jump on this immediately, but we just can't yet. And I understand that's frustrating, but at least we have hope. And this is, this with this disease, hope is the one thing that is lacking. But this gives huge hope to a lot of people.
It
This
does.
is not for SOD1, is it? It's purely for TB.
No, this is for sporadic. So, you're talking the majority of patients with motor neurone
Yeah.
disease. Yeah,
And that, it's the first real light we've had in a very long time.
it is. I mean, there's other drugs out there, and I guess as much as I hope that our next clinical studies produce the results that we're all hoping for. It's a learning process. There's still lots to learn about motor neurone disease, the
Yeah.
pathology, the mechanisms behind it, the genetics. Where we're looking at collaborating with a group around biomarkers, around using AI, speech, potentially eye movements as a way of having a better instrument for assessing for efficacy. So we're trying to build as much as we can to get as much information out of this study. So, if, God forbid, we're not successful, that the next drug that's in development is going to be able to, either learn from our mistakes or capitalize on the data that we produce through these exploratory endpoints. And, hopefully, we're not far away from either Monepantel making having a significant impact on patients with, or on people with ALS or motor neurone disease, but even the next drug.
Thank you. Is there anything? Some days it gets really depressing being here, but this is not depressing. Is there anything you'd like to say to us before we sign off?
Yeah, I think we made a big announcement about the Healy platform trial, and while that trial is very much US eccentric, it's ran out of Mass General. It only enrolls patients with in the US catchment. We're going to do our best to make sure that we expand our open label extension study to allow patients here in Australia access to the drug. We're actively looking at that. What the best way to do that is, consulting with Motor Neurone Disease Australia, also talking to Fight MND, because we want to make the drug available to as many people here in Australia as we possibly can. So that's what we want to do, and
Okay.
leave that with me.
It's with you.
Okay, thanks. No, yes, no, definitely, it's
No pressure, dude.
no,
No.
we've been on a fantastic journey to date, and in a lot of ways it's been really quick, even though that light bulb moment happened back in 2011 with Professor David Morris down in his sheep paddock. from the time we started talking to Susan Mathers and Dominic Rowe about doing the initial phase 1 study, getting Fight MND on board, it just gives you a real indication that there is an opportunity for Australia to contribute to this disease. And when we all collaborate together, that can happen very quickly. So let's continue that.
Let's teamwork.
Exactly.
Yeah. Michael, I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you.
Pleasure. Really.
Is Dave, just for I probably should ask you this later, is David Morris working still?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, he is. Yeah, no, he's certainly still I'm pretty sure stomach cancer. So he's still still operating away and contributing and still trying to develop anti-cancer drugs. So no,
he's an amazing. Offline, I'm going to get his email address because I need to email him now and I don't know where it is.
Exactly. No, please do that. Yeah. No, he's certainly, that's how this all started. So
oh my God, that is so serendipitous. I can't believe it. Just life is insane.
It is indeed. But excellent. No, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
For the opportunity to talk to your listeners, and you continue to do your good work because I know that you contribute a lot.
Thank you, Michael.
Well done.
Okay. Thank you. Well done, you. And we will be in touch very soon.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye.
Just need to stop something here. Hang on.